What if I told you that asking the right questions before you even start designing allows you to charge more money, and clients would be happy paying it? Hey there, I'm Mark Decote, and I've been in the design industry for over 35 years, and I've learned some lessons that have changed how I approach every new design project. Now, most designers jump straight into the design work. They get a brief, maybe a couple of sentences from the client, and they start creating. But there's a better way. There's a way that actually makes you more money, builds client confidence, and prevents you from doing the work twice. And it all starts with asking questions. Here's the thing that sets us apart as professional designers from those spec sites. Like 99 Designs, where people throw out a project brief and a bunch of designers just bid and compete for it. Or on Fiverr, where you write a brief and leave it to chance that the designer can deliver what you want. On those sites, the client writes down what they want. They describe a logo or a website or whatever. Then designers design it without understanding the business. There's no research, there's no background. They don't know why the logo matters or what the company actually does. And because of that, the designs that come back are often pretty basic. Sometimes they look nice, sure, but they're not really well thought out. How could they be? Nobody actually knows the full scope of what they're designing. And that is what makes us different. We have a direct communication with our clients. We get to ask questions, and that's our superpower. Now, I like to use a popular sports analogy here, and that's a good offense is often the best defense. And that's what we do. Before we even take on a job, we ask a bunch of questions to know more about what we're walking into. But here's where it gets interesting. Asking questions doesn't just help you design better. It actually shows your client that you are a professional. Think about it from their perspective. They're getting quotes from maybe 2 or 3 designers. One designer says, "Thanks for the brief, here's my price." Done. Just gives them a number. Then you come back to them asking thoughtful questions. You're digging into the business. You're asking about their competition. You're asking them about their target audience. You're asking them about their goals. And yeah, your price may be higher than that first designer's, but your client will look at the situation and think, well, that first person just gave us a price without asking us anything. They don't seem to know what they're doing. But this person who asked all these questions, they clearly care. They're taking the time to understand us. They know their business better. Even though your price may be higher, they'll want to work with you. And that's the power of asking questions. It's not just about getting information so you can design something good for them. It's about building confidence. It's about showing that you're the right person for the job. I'm going to walk through 50 questions that I ask before taking on any new design project. But here's the important thing. You're not going to ask all 50 of them. That would be way too many questions, and your client would think you're crazy. What you're going to do is pick and choose depending on the situation. You're going to figure out which questions matter for the specific project you're talking about. And honestly, as you're asking these questions and having a real conversation with your client, you'll probably come up with your own questions too that are not on my list. Just remember this. No design project ever failed because the designer knew too much about the client. It's better to ask these questions, get the answers, and go into the project prepared rather than staying naive and wasting time designing something that isn't what they want or need. Now, I've divided all 50 questions into different categories, and today we're going to focus on the first category, questions about your client's company itself. I'll cover the rest of the questions in additional videos in this series. Now, these are usually the first questions you'll ask. They're the foundation. So let's go through them. Question number 1, what's the name of your company? Now, this seems obvious, especially if you're designing a logo, but it matters that you ask. You need to know the name right off the bat. And sometimes the name the company uses is not actually its legal name. So it's good to know this right off. Simple question. Now, question number 2, can you describe what your company does? Now, this one's important because the name doesn't always tell you the whole story. I have two clients who are both law firms. Both of them have names that are basically something something law firm. So I know they're lawyers. But here's where it gets different. One of them only deals with real estate law, while the other one does business law, civil law, and a few other areas. They don't touch real estate law, though. So when I ask, what does your company do? I'm able to figure out that one client has a real estate focus, and that changes how I approach design for them, and the other client needs a completely different direction. If I just assumed based on their names that they're lawyers, I could have missed that. Now, question 3, what services or products does your company produce? Sometimes you might not be designing something specifically for one of their products, but knowing what they make helps you understand what kind of company this is. It shapes your design decisions, even if the design itself isn't directly about the product. Now, question 4, how long have you been in business? Now, this one matters because it tells you about their history. Are they a brand new startup that just launched a few months ago and nobody really knows about them? Or are they a 50-year-old company that people in the community know really well? That changes everything about how you're going to design for them. A brand new company needs a different approach than an established one. Now, question 5, why was this company started? Now, this is where things start to get interesting. Sometimes there's a really compelling story behind why a company exists. Maybe you're designing for a restaurant. Well, the owner could tell you, yeah, I just like cooking and decided to open a restaurant. Or they could tell you, well, my parents ran a restaurant in our home country, then we migrated here, and I wanted to continue that family tradition. See the difference? That story matters. It informs your design. It gives you insight into what the business is really about. Now, question number 6 is, how big is the company? Is this a one-person operation, or does it have 100 employees? And that will change your approach. A solopreneur running their own business needs a different visual identity from that of a large corporation. Now, we're going to get into the competitive landscape here. This is where you figure out where your client sits in the market. So question number 7, are you a local company, a national company, or an international company? And this is huge. If you're designing for a company that only operates, say, in Canada, where I am, you might lean into the Canadian culture or sensibilities in your design. But if they're a Canadian company that does a lot of business in the USA and internationally, they might not want that because they're trying to appeal to a much broader market. So knowing this shapes every design decision that you make. Now, question 8 is, who is your competition? You need to know who they're up against. This is non-negotiable. This question, you just ask it. Now, question 9 is, how are you different from your competition? Now, this is one that can really help you if your client can pinpoint exactly what makes them different. Maybe it's their customer service. Maybe it's their quality. Maybe it's their price. That difference can inform your design decisions. Maybe they're the most affordable option. Maybe they're the premium option. Maybe they're the fastest. Whatever it is, it should probably show up in your design somehow. Now, question 10 is, how are your competitors marketing themselves? Now, this is really important, especially if you're designing something like a logo or a full marketing campaign. You want to look at what the competition is doing so you don't accidentally design something that looks like you're copying them. But more than that, if you're helping with their broader marketing strategy, you want to know what's working in the space. Maybe you'll notice that all the competitors are doing billboards and getting really good traffic from them. Maybe direct mail doesn't seem to work in that industry. That kind of insight is gold. Now we're going to get into the future-facing questions. Question 11, what are your long-term goals for the company? Now, this might not be relevant for every project. If they're hiring you to design something for a one-time event and that's it, maybe this doesn't matter as much. But if it's a startup that's building something for a long term, or if they're launching an event that they hope will become, an international or national thing, you want to know that up front. It changes how you design. You don't want to create something so narrow or so limited that it won't work as they grow. Now, question number 12, can you describe your company's strengths? Get them to talk about what they're really good at. What do they do better than anyone else? When you understand a company's strengths, you might find creative ways to highlight those in the design. Maybe they're known for incredible customer loyalty. Maybe that's something you can work into the visual language. Now, question 13, can you describe your company's weakness? Now, this one is interesting. If they tell you about a weakness, maybe they're smaller than their competitors, or maybe they're newer, you can sometimes design in a way that draws attention away from that weakness or reframes it into a positive. You're not trying to fix their business, obviously, but you're aware of what they're concerned about, and that awareness helps you make better design choices. So there you have it, 13 questions about their company. And here's the thing, you're asking all of this before you even start sketching. Your client is watching you take notes. They're seeing that you care about understanding their business. They're noticing that you're not just a designer who makes pretty things. You're someone who understands strategy. And that confidence you build in those first 15 or 20 minutes of conversation, that's worth more than any portfolio piece can ever be. And it directly impacts your pricing. Because now, when you give them a quote, they're not just comparing your price to another designer's price. They're comparing the depth of your process to someone who just asked for a brief and then started designing. There's no comparison. Now, knowing about the company is just the start. In the next video, I'm going to walk you through the questions you need to ask about their target audience. Because here's the thing, your client might think their audience is everyone. And when they tell you that, you need to know how to push back and actually get useful information. That's where the real insights come from. But before we get there, if you're finding this helpful, please hit that subscribe button. I drop new videos every week about the business side of design, the stuff that actually makes your business work. And if you're struggling with client projects right now, or you're not sure how to position yourself as more than just a designer, these questions are going to change everything. So subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Till then, stay creative.